concerns that when these plans are presented, they present the developer's vision supported by the Division of Planning and Zoning?
Well, one thing that many other cities have doing or started to do is bring more people in the planning discussion, and that's just by using online. One of the things that many cities still do nowadays is they purchase a little tiny black and white ad in the back page of the local paper, and frankly, that's not enough anymore. Not only that, but a lot of people don't have the time to sit through a 9-hour meeting time and time and time again to talk about what they'd like to see for the city. We need to open up the process more. We need to have more people come and do this online when they get home from work. Places like Tulsa, San Francisco, Oklahoma City are doing this already. It's not something that is wild and crazy. It's something that we can actually do here in Alexandria, and it's been tested. So I think if we do that and we open up the process to a lot more people in the city who don't have the time to sit through these meetings, I think people will feel like they're more a part of the plan and they have more of an idea of what's going on. And frankly, I think that's the way I'd like to see the city go.
Thank you. Next up, Michael Hepburn asking a question of John Chapman.
Hey, John. All right. So you notice I'm really pushing this concept of how we're going to meet our affordable housing needs and challenges. And the conversation that I'm having a lot from our residents west of Quaker Lane, in a sense, is I understand we have affordable housing issues, but what are you going to do about it financially? So my question to you is, are you willing or are you for trying to create a way that we provide funding to solve this problem? Like City Council, through our budget, provide funding yearly to solve this problem.
Yes, and one of the things I think before we even really talk about the issue of just funding is talk about how we're set up to do this. One of the things that I'd like to have a community discussion about is internally, what are the private-public partnerships that we're making to talk about affordable housing? One of the internal public-private partnerships that we've really never explored is, what do our houses of worship do? How can we pull them into the game? We have Alfred Street Baptist Church, church I go to, has bought a couple blocks next to it, and they're looking to redevelop that and make that affordable housing. Shiloh Baptist has done the same thing when it comes to senior housing. Why are we not pushing that? These are folks that are internal, that we can reach out and touch and say, hey, we have a problem here. How can we get you involved? It's not about just, trying to put a cent or 2 cents or, a whole dollar, whatever, for affordable housing. It's about pulling in all the partners we can to do this, because it is a problem here. I've seen tons of people be pushed out of this city, but we haven't set the plan for how we're going to do this. Yes, we're coming with the affordable housing plan, but we're not pulling in our internal partners, and they're being left out, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Next, Boyd Walker asks a question of Melissa Feld.
Hey, Melissa, how are your fingers?
A lot better, thanks.
Okay. Well, Melissa, I know that you were thinking of running for school board before. So I'd like to give you the chance to tell the audience here why you think you should be on city council and not just on the school board.
Thank you for that question. It's a good question because I've also, it was something that I had thought about, and when I looked at the big picture of where I could make an impact, where I could take my skills and serve the city the best and my neighbors and leave a legacy for my children, I thought on city council I can impact the building, I can impact the infrastructure of our city, I can work and build communities to try and stop some of the transportation issues so that my kids can actually cross the street and not worry about getting hit by a car. I think there's a lot that I bring that is a different perspective, because on school board it's a finite area that I can affect. Here's something that I can affect I can affect all the parts of our city, and I love the historic and the modern connection that we have, and I want to be able to be a steward that we maintain the sort of historic beauty of our city, but move it into the 21st, or move it forward, keep it going into the future, so that my neighbors, when they get older, will be able to, as a community, keep helping them. Some of the things I said on my vision are things that I believe, as I'm on City Council, will be able to do.
Thank you. And the final candidate-to-candidate question is from Justin Wilson to Del Pepper.
Hey, Del. Del, as you know, we have an $80 million unfunded liability for our retirees' health care and life insurance. Mm-hmm. And as you also know, several years ago, we started to pre-fund those obligations, setting aside additional money every year on a schedule that we've adopted that increases every year. How do you prioritize that funding? Do you support the continued pre-funding of those obligations? And how would you rank it relative to the many important priorities we have in the future?
Well, it certainly is one of our big priorities. We've got to see it in that way, and I think that we continue funding things in exactly that way and other priorities. You know, I like to think of it being the budget as well as our programs as being a pie, and everybody should have the slice that they need, if that is a good analogy of what I'm talking about.
Thank you. We're nearing the end of the program. We have 2 sections left. The next section is my prerogative to ask a question of the candidates. And I'd like you all to think back, and we'll go from left to right, starting with Sammy and ending with Melissa. If you could, in 60 seconds or less, tell us about your first political memory here in Alexandria. Sammy?
Oh, dear.
Whoa. I moved to Alexandria in 1983 and got involved in the struggle to save Arlandria. Testified at City Council, worked as one of the founding members of the Tenants and Workers United, worked to help rally the community, work shoulder to shoulder with the community to work to save that housing. And that effort resulted in a historic low-equity co-op in Alexandria, a perfect example of a way in which creative ideas helped people keep their homes for a long time. I've also worked as a rank-and-file Democrat, stuffing envelopes, door-knocking for Senate candidates, for presidential candidates, and yes, for city council candidates. And it's been an important part of my life since I moved here in '83.
Thank you. John, your first political memory here in Alexandria.
My first political memory was my mom. She was involved we lived in public housing, and she was a citizen rep on the ARHA board. And having to go to meetings with her, as she became engaged as a citizen, we'd have to sit in the back of the room, me and my sister, and do our homework while she discussed, ways to make that community better. And that was sort of how I got pulled in, because it didn't matter, how much money she made, or what she did. She could still find time to be engaged, and that's my first memory.
Thank you. Sean?
I'm a relative newcomer compared to everyone else. I moved up here in 2007 to work for Brian Moran as his legislative aide, and one of the first things I think I had to deal with was someone had a mosquito problem. So when you're a legislative aide, that's sort of the things you have to deal with. It's all about constituent issues, so that's one of the first memories I have of living here.
How'd you deal with a mosquito problem?
I don't actually remember.
Donna?
I moved here 30 years ago, and about 2-3 weeks after I arrived, I met a gentleman named Ben Brenman and another one named Jim Marks, and we were all discovered that we love grassroots politics, and that to me is the passion that I have, is where the people are. We formed the Homes Run Committee so we could have a group of people fighting off the dream of having a beltway connector to Duke Street called the Claremont Connector. And that became a bigger, it grew, it sort of blossomed. And then we cleaned up the park. Then we started cleaning up Fox Chase. And we had all kinds of wonderful adventures in grassroots politics, which is, in my opinion, where it all is.
Thank you. Michael?
I remember when I moved here in 2006 to start my internship with NFLPA, my goal was to become the next commissioner of the NFL. So that was my focus. I was like, I'm going to sports. I'm going to make a difference, make history. 2008 came, focusing on the career, and our president wasn't president then, was getting ready to run for office. And it changed the whole dynamic of how I felt about what I can do every day to make a difference. I still remember to this day coming home and speaking to my girlfriend, and we were watching the debates on the phone. That's when they'll start putting the different TV shows and stuff on the cell phones. And from that conversation, I remember when I actually did get the job for the NFL, everyone thought my life was going to change forever, and then I told them, guess what? I'm going to go work for the NFL for about a year. I'm going to leave, go to grad school, get a master's in public administration and criminal justice because I want to run for office one day and make a difference in my community. Everybody thought I was crazy, but it started the path that I'm on now to truly make a difference and do something that I'm passionate about and have a true purpose every day that I wake up. So that was my entry into this political movement that I'm on now.
Thank you. Boyd.
Yeah, well, I grew up here in Alexandria, and I actually remember coming here to Hammond to see the Washington Diplomats in the Major League Soccer. They played right in the field here. And but my earliest memory is marching from McGovern to Washington, D.C. from Alexandria. And I have pictures of it on my wall at home. When I was 6, I think I passed a flyer to Marion Van Lanningham. She said I was the first person to pass a flyer to her. I grew up in a Democratic family. And as many of you know, my mom was on city council from 94 to 2000. In 2003 and 2006, I ran Andrew McDonald's campaigns for city council. In 2006, he was the most successful council candidate, getting the most votes, and then we had to campaign for him to become vice mayor after that. And more recently, I had the Obama office on King Street in 2008 and helped the Obama team provide them a space and help them get the votes that they needed to get here in Alexandria. We also had an office for Cree Deeds in the same building. So I've really worked hard to help Democratic candidates in the city, and I love working with them and look forward to working with the Democratic candidates here in City Council.
Thank you. Justin, first political memory here in Alexandria?
Right after I returned from college and bought my first home here in Alexandria, the mother of Del Rey, the late Judy Lowe, called me up and said, you know, you live in Del Rey, so you need tomorrow night to go to the Del Rey Citizens Association. And then she said, and next Monday, you need to go to the Alexandria Democratic Committee, and you need to go to that meeting. And within a couple weeks, I was treasurer of Del Rey, later president, and then I became deputy chair of the party and everything else. And, you know, Judy brought me into this process here in Alexandria, and it's been a fun ride ever since. I would say, though, that the personal is the political in some respects, because, you know, I met my wife, who was a native Alexandrian, in the Young Democrats in college. And she made it very clear that we were moving back to Alexandria to buy our first home. We got engaged here in the city of Alexandria, right near the King Street Metro Rail Station. That's the way I roll. And our children were born here, one on the way to the hospital and one in Alexandria Hospital. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, my first pure political involvement here and memory in Alexandria after I moved here was going to an ADC meeting and meeting all the wonderful people that are part of that group and getting a call from Anna Leiter a few weeks later wondering if I wanted to help out with precinct operations with Rob Caprica. And we know where that led both of us. So, and then in terms of community experience, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is some story similar to Donna's. When I headed up my neighborhood homeowners association, we worked with the neighborhood association stopping a development that was proposed right on the parkway for 1 million square feet. And we mobilized and we worked together. And Donna, I think you were on planning commission at the time. We were successful in stopping that development, and we were very focused, and we were able, I think, to save a lot of things, and it led to the establishment and reaffirmation of the Washington Street guidelines.
Thank you. Arthur.
Well, I'm decidedly a part of the generation that believes firmly that each person can make a difference, and I've spent my entire professional career in public service. First political memory in Alexandria. Do you remember the president who wanted to make the government as good and as great as the American people? Jimmy Carter. He had a big rally right before the 1976 election in Market Square, and it was vibrant, fun, exciting, and he won the election.
Thank you. Victoria.
Ironically, more than 25 years ago, I joined the struggle for affordable housing as a group of tenants, low income, and a community of color were facing displacement, like the tenants currently living at the small area plan that they're about to get displaced. Since then, I haven't stopped, and also it gave me the opportunity to also learn about the other issues that they were experiencing, which was the achievement gap. And of course, I'm a founder a member of the Tenants and Workers United, and within that organization, also was involved in workers' rights in trying to fight for better working conditions and salaries for hotel workers. I have testified in front of City Council in different issues, and also in front of the school board about